Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the DLF Trade Show, NFL Trade Deadline Edition. Now, I know, at least me personally, I am a no trade deadlines kind of guy. In Dynasty, in the NFL, I think it's rational, logical, and probably needed to have a trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Though that would be super curious. Imagine it's playoffs, like the actual Dynasty trade deadlines. Like, and someone goes and like, hey, DeAndre Hopkins, come over, we'll give you a second. And they do that. Would you feel safe playing him in your fantasy lineups? Well, I guess if it's the NFL trade
Yeah, if it's the
deadline,
NFL,
NFL
the
playoffs, we're
NFL
not playing
playoffs.
fantasy anymore. But no, my question still kind of stands. Like, even if it's just hypothetical, like, do you think they would be able to adapt quick enough to a new playbook to be able to be useful?
Effective.
I mean, like, Christian McCaffrey showed he just needs like a day and he's fine.
Right. I think there's definitely, it lends itself to certain positions as well. Like, for a running back, especially for Christian McCaffrey, it's just like, we're just going to get you the ball. Like, we're just going to give you the ball and just run.
Yeah, or if you get like a speed guy, it's like, all right, we're going to call hike and then you run straight.
And go.
So this is going to be players involved in NFL trades and one or two trades about players around. This is my hand motions for around the players that have been traded as well. So let's get started by the first, I think it was at least the first notable trade from yesterday. And it's probably the most exciting, I think. Well, here, let me just, before we even get into the specific trades, how do you feel about TJ Hockenson in Dynasty?
I was never like, I was all in on TJ Hockenson last year. Then he kind of burned me. And now coming into this year, it was like, they had Jameson Williams, another year for Amon-Ra, DeAndre Swift, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a lot of moving parts here that, like, Hockenson just kind of ended up being a tight end that I felt like was one of the first tight ends that you want to get after the end of the elite tight ends, but didn't feel all that dissimilar from a lot of other guys that are way down at the bottom. Like the difference between TJ Hockenson and Evan Ingram might not be that drastic, David Njoku, guys like that. So Hockenson is just kind of meh. And now that he's in Minnesota, I think he's even more meh.
Okay, so I agree with everything you just said when it comes to TJ Hockenson. Before last season, I'm like, this dude is going to push his way into those elite guys. He didn't do it.
We were there for 2 weeks.
It's right now. I mean, Travis Kelce's unfair. He is averaging in Trade Addicts scoring, so it's 1.75 premium. Travis Kelce is averaging 26 points per game. Mark Andrews in second place, 19. Wow.
Dang.
Zach Ertz in third, 16. Travis Kelce is averaging 10 more points per game than the tight end 3. But he's 31 or 32. He's bad. You can't trade for him. Yeah, I've heard that. But like you said, Hockenson is tight end 6 points per game at 15, where, I mean, from 15.1 to 14.1, there are 9 tight ends.
Yeah.
So it's and then the thing is, his value was always held higher than Goddard, Freiermuth. I mean, well, Njoku, because that wasn't a thing until this year anyway. But like, he was always held a little bit higher, so I had 0 Hockenson on my team. And honestly, usually any news in a trade is good news for dynasty value. So I think this might bump him a bit, in which case I'm less interested. But let's go to the trades, because honestly, like, I don't know how I feel, so this is going to help me a lot. 12-team Superflex, TJ Hockenson for Rondale Moore and Evan Engram. Hockenson in at 176.3, Rondale Moore 87, Evan Engram 30 for a total of 116.6. Now, like you said, Hockenson is in that mess of tight ends. Man, I don't even see, is Engram doing that bad?
He has peak weeks.
Oh, there he is. He is averaging 12 points per game, and that is honestly weeks 3 and 4, but weeks 5, 6, 7, and 8, 17, 13, 14, 19. So he's more of a thing now. And honestly, yeah. And Rondale Moore, I love that there's Rondale Moore usage. Like, let's do it. And so I honestly, I think I would take this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, I feel like it would go through and people would be like, wait, what? And then you just be like, just think about it. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I guess I get it. you know, It's one of those things where at first it's just like, wait, what the hell are you? Remember, Hockenson doesn't actually score points. True. Okay. Nope. My bad. You're right.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think, like I said, and maybe that was because Evan Ingram was in my head, but like I literally said before this that I don't think there's that much difference between TJ Hockenson and Evan Ingram right now anyway. And then you just get Rondale Moore, who's been looking really good. Maybe that's just a product of Nuke wasn't on the field at first, and then Hollywood's now not on the field. So what is it going to look like whenever Hollywood's back and it's both Hollywood and DeAndre Hopkins? But at least Rondale Moore's doing something.
But also, Hollywood's probably not coming back into fantasy season. If anything, it's the beginning of the playoffs, which I guess will suck for your Rondale in the playoffs. But he's going to give you wide receiver 2, 3 numbers with maybe a spike week that gets him into that low end one on a weaker wide receiver week. But like, look at the price you paid. Like, to me, like, the more I think about this, the more I'm just like, yeah, I think I do this because I'm all about cashing out on Hockenson. And if I'm going to do that, give me a tight end who's scoring pretty much the same amount of points and a player I like and who I think has steady upside. Like, I'm never going to insinuate that Rondale Moore is going to be a top 12 wide receiver. That's not what I'm trying to say. But given this, the more I talk, the more I'm like emphatically taking this package.
Rondale Moore.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of cashing out on TJ Hockenson, oh boy, TJ Hockenson and a 23 second for Chris Olave. I don't want to tell you what I've recently had to trade to go get Chris Olave, because I went into every league that I do not have him, which is unfortunately too many, and I offered a trade, regardless if it made sense, regardless if it was good, because sometimes I just didn't have what it took. I sent a trade for Olave. The only one I can remember off the top of my head, because it happened like 3 days ago, I ended up sending Devonta Smith and what will be, we keep joking that it's the 112 because it's Rocky's first in Trade Addicts 1 and his team is good, but a late first, we'll say, for Chris Olave straight up. Oh yeah, we did the other Olave trade as the Russ's inbox.
Yeah, we did.
So like, I overpaid to go get Chris Olave, and this person got him for TJ Hockenson in a second. Like,
yeah,
my feelings are hurt.
Maybe you should go acquire TJ Hockenson real quick and then try to do this trade for Chris Olave.
Oh man, so I love sending Rocky. In case anyone watching does it, I host the Trade Addicts podcast with my friend Rocky at Dynasty FF Addict on Twitter, and at this point, I jokingly just sent him terrible offers every once in a while because it's funny. I sent him Kenyon Drake and Deonta Foreman for TJ Hockenson, and it was rejected very quickly with some very colorful language in the comments.
Oh no.
So I did technically try and acquire one share of TJ Hockenson, but it did not go well, clearly. But yeah, okay. Do we have to say anything else besides, oh man, this is Chris Olave?
Yeah, go apparently try to sell. If you have TJ Hockenson, try to see if one of your 9 or 11 other league mates really like this move, that he's going to Minnesota, and cash out.
Yes, try this before you try going after Rondale and Ingram, because I would take Chris Olave over Rondale Moore and Evan Ingram talking about. But you know what we are talking about? Man, I wish I had my jerseys over here. Do I?
Well, it's
not going to look right anymore.
Old
but
now.
Never did I believe I was going to wake up. I can't see through this thing in November of the year 2022 and think we were going to get to talk about Calvin Ridley. But here we are.
It was pretty
and
funny
just
whenever
realized
I told you that Calvin Ridley got traded.
Yeah, you did. I was on a
freaking
freaking
work call.
Yeah.
I have 3 signed jerseys in my drawer waiting to get hung up.
Now 2 of them are on the different teams. Allen Robinson on the Bears, Calvin Ridley on the Falcons. Keenan, you better not go anywhere.
Well, he's there for a little bit more, I think. So
just stay for your career, man. You don't need to go anywhere else. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Calvin Ridley got traded. Calvin Ridley got traded to the Jaguars, which, not gonna lie, I love. Because first of all, I love me some Trevor Lawrence. I'm there for it. ETN is making that offense run. I love Christian Kirk, but I've been saying since before this season that Christian Kirk is going to do well, and then they're going to draft an X receiver in this next class. Mm-hmm. They may not have to waste a first on a wide receiver now, which is what I thought they would do. Like,
you never know.
You can. It would feel like a waste to put a 24-second in for Ridley, which good for the Falcons for getting that.
It was so it was changed after that. It was a fourth, I think. It was a conditional fourth that could become a third if Ridley plays. I think if he plays a significant amount, and then it would become a second if they extend him. If they give him a contract extension, it becomes a second. It's a very creative conditional.
I've never heard of a double conditional.
No, it was interesting. So
good for you, man. Good for you guys. That's cool. But yeah, like I still like it because I like the way that offense is trending. They just need to, be more consistent about it. But I like the way it's going. So add Calvin Ridley to that, and I'm super sold. So let's do it. 12-team super flex. Marquise Brown, and Calvin Ridley, I like both of those guys, and they're both not playing right now. For DeAndre Hopkins and a 23-second. Interesting. Okay. So Marquise Brown, 282, Calvin Ridley, 55 for a total of 337. DeAndre Hopkins, 193, a 23-second, 134 for a total of 327. See, here's the thing that's weird for me. If you're playing for next year, you're giving up Hopkins. It feels weird to give up that second also. And the thing is, you're still buying what's going to be a 28 and a 26-year-old. Mm-hmm. Like, if I could throw in a player worth a second in there, I would feel so much better about it. But screw it. I love Hollywood and Calvin. And I know #Team Clemson, big wide receiver. DeAndre's on that other side. But I think I'm going Marquise and Ridley. But clearly, if you want the points, Nuke is doing it right now. So I get it.
Yeah, this one, I think it is a weird construction overall, because I do understand, like, if you're contending and you need those points, you're, just going out and getting DeAndre Hopkins, adding a second, I think is pretty solid on top of that too. It adds a little bit of assurance and like a nice little extra value pick that's not really going to lose value. But I can understand from like a dynasty standpoint, if you're kind of middle of the pack or you're looking towards the future, being able to sell Hopkins and the second I think Hopkins in a second themselves would be a good trade just to go get Hollywood if you're rebuilding or, looking towards next year kind of thing. I think that makes sense. But then you also get the option of Calvin Ridley, who maybe his value rises, when we start talking about him coming back. Maybe you keep him into next season, see what he becomes on Jacksonville, assuming that he is playing him back and everything like that. I think I am taking the Hollywood side just because I think he's the best piece in this entire trade. So I just kind of want that deal. And I still think that you can move Calvin Ridley for a second, either 23 or 24, just by himself. And maybe you just do that instead. So then you're getting that second in some other form while still getting the best asset in Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, my thing is, if you were excited about Michael Thomas coming back, you have to be more excited for Calvin Ridley coming back, because Michael Thomas was hurt for like 3 years. Calvin Ridley was not hurt. I mean, it's more and more looking that he stepped away because he knew he was about to get in trouble, which I'm not going to say in any definitive matter, because if the dude had something going on mentally, then yeah, you got to walk away. And I'm never going to flat out call him a liar, but I'm just going to say what the optics were, but like, I'm excited about Calvin coming back. people were pushing Michael Thomas close to that early second, late first when like right before the season started. Then the dude catches 2 touchdowns in the first game, and you were only getting
Michael Thomas is back. So
there's no reason Calvin Ridley can't do this, because he will walk on that field and be the best receiver that Trevor Lawrence has thrown to since college.
Maybe even since Huntley's.
Well, I mean, he's had better. He hasn't had a good wide receiver in the NFL.
That's true. Yeah.
Great. Let me change that. Great wide receivers in the NFL. Because like Marvin Jones is always good enough, and I love me some Christian Kirk, but he's not like that dude. Calvin Ridley can be. So let's move on to a 12-team 1 quarterback, where the trade is Calvin Ridley and a 23 second for Gabe Davis, Zach Ertz, and Raheem Mostert. Caution, Team B is giving up the highest value asset and the most pieces in the deal. 23 second and Calvin Ridley come out to 206. Team B, Gabe Davis, Zach Ertz, and Raheem Mostert come out to be 460.5. I feel like it's not worth reading all of them individually because Gabe Davis is most of it, and then Ertz and Mostert are a little bit. If I'm a competing team, I would love to be able to get Gabe Davis, Zach Ertz, and Raheem Mostert. I've been kind of out on Gabe Davis because the price was always crazy, but it's kind of getting down to a decent price where he's a great like wide receiver 3 for your fantasy team. Not a wide receiver 3 in fantasy, but like have him as your 3rd or 4th wide receiver, because he seems to consistently put up to that 8 to 10 points, but he can catch 4 touchdowns any game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he has a safe floor and a really high ceiling. So I like having him on your team, especially at this price. So yeah, I think I take that. The other way around, if I'm rebuilding, maybe I just hold Gabe Davis at this point, but it's not bad. Like if I'm rebuilding, I don't really care about Ertz and Mostert. I think you should be able to get something for Mostert, but not Mostert, Ertz. Sorry. Well, maybe now with Chase Edmonds gone and Jeff Wilson, and we know Mostert is the dude because he was anyway, but now we know for sure. But still, I think I just want Gabe Davis. But I really just want the second in Calvin Ridley. Stop making me choose this. What do you want?
This one's Gabe Davis for me. This is similar to the Hollywood one where Gabe Davis is the best asset in the deal. So I'm going to take that side. I totally agree. If you're contending, I love getting Gabe Davis plus Zach Ertz plus Raheem Mostert. I think that's amazing in terms of a contending roster. If you're rebuilding, I do agree with you. I don't think this is not the direction that I would want to be heading. I like getting the second. That's nice. Yeah. But, to send away Gabe Davis and then pick up Calvin Ridley, who, might gain value, but is he going to gain significant value? Like it still might, like we talked about Michael Thomas possibly being sold for a late first, but are you actually going to get that though? That's the other thing that you kind of try to have to gamble on.
Like I feel like I'd be curious to see what these talks were, because my initial offer, or if this was sent to me, my counter, I would just take Gabe Davis and Ridley out of this and try and get a second for Ertz and Mostert.
Right. Honestly, I feel like you could potentially get a second for Mostert himself, depending on how needy a contender actually is. It would be pushing it, but I feel like there are leagues out there where that's possible.
Yeah, deeper leagues, probably, yes.
Maybe, even if it was a 24 second, I think maybe that might be more attainable, but I would even do that.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, honestly, at this point, 23 picks are so ridiculous. I will interchange 23 and 24 because 24 is so far looking to be a very good class also. Mm-hmm. And it's not worth it to pay up for 23 picks at this point for what they're going for. So if someone is just like holding on for dear life to anything with 23, unless you sell the farm, keep your farm, push it, kick the can down a year and get a 24 pick. Mm-hmm. So I also wanted to make Addison do more work and look for some trades that involve the players around the players that got traded. And he found one for Christian Kirk that happened after the Calvin Ridley trade. So also in a 12-team 1 quarterback, we have Christian Kirk and Hunter Renfrow for Jerry Jeudy and a 23 third. Wow, some of this is interesting. All right, so, Christian Kirk for Jeudy and Hunter Renfrow for a third kind of makes sense. I think I want Jeudy in the pick though,
Ah,
The analyzer does not agree, by the way. Kirk 293, Renfro 108 for a total of 400, Judy 303, the 23 third 49 for a total of 352. So this, I mean, it's really outweighed by the fact that they have Renfro worth much more than a third, but you're not getting a second for him.
mm-mm.
He's
No,
not doing anything.
that is a weird number that
Yeah,
they put
to
on
me,
Renfro.
like these trades should be even, and in that, if that's the case, I think I'm taking Jerry Jeudy over Christian Kirk.
I love the idea of what I think this trade was trying to do, was basically recognizing that Christian Kirk is in trouble with the current role that he has right now, because they just traded for Calvin Ridley to potentially be a second round pick in 2 years. That's significant. And like you said, kind of at the beginning of the Calvin Ridley thing, was they could still potentially draft an X, you know?
Yeah.
This wide receiver class is looking very good as well. Maybe it's not a first round pick, but if it's a second round pick,
Don't matter.
you know, that's still significant. Like adding in a George Pickens kind of player or somebody like that to this offense would be significant. And my personal fear is that Christian Kirk gets relegated back to his role in Arizona, which is probably what fits him the most. Like that is what he is in the NFL. He was just elevated to being a wide receiver one by the situation in the contract. But if he's going to get relegated back to that, that's going to be a value drop. And I want to get ahead of the curve now before that value actually does drop. And I think pivoting off of Kirk makes a lot of sense. I just don't know if Jerry Jeudy is the right one that I want.
He's the one that's seeming to do well in that offense, though. So is Greg Dulcich apparently. But yeah, I mean, honestly, Kirk to Jeudy seems pretty lateral to me. You get 2 years younger. It's whatever that offense is right now. But like, you're right. If Kirk is thrown back into the slot and pretty much treated like a wide receiver 3, Jaguars will not have the amount of plays called that the Cardinals did when Kirk was there and in the slot. Mm-hmm. So I think it will be tough for Kirk to be dependable.
Yeah.
So that's why I give me Jeudy, who I just think is a better player in general.
I would take Jeudy. I just wish, like, personally, I just wish it was somebody else. Like, could you give me Ayuk? Could I get Jahan Dotson, who's currently not playing? Like, I feel like that might be attainable.
You probably can, yeah.
Yeah, so... But, yeah. I still take Jeudy, though.
Okay. Well, speaking of second-round wide receivers and players affected with George Pickens involved, Chase Claypool actually got traded. I was, not going to lie, a little surprised. It was one of those things that kind of wanted to happen, both for Claypool and for Pickens. But it happens. And I'm glad he went to the Bears. I think before we actually get into the Steelers side of this, is which we're really about to talk about, I think this shows that they don't... I was scared for Justin Fields' life at the beginning of the season. All they did was bring in Velus Jones and nothing else. But the past few games, he's been passing a bit more. He's been doing better, looking better. And then they bring in Chase Claypool. Not to say Chase Claypool is a game changer in any way, but he's probably the best wide receiver on that team now. Oh, like, I like Darnell Mooney, but he's okay. And now we just have to hope that Fields has long enough to be able to let Claypool run a route before he gets sacked, so he has time to throw the ball. But I love it because it's an investment in the offense, which we haven't seen yet. So I'm hoping this is like the start of a trend where they'll draft a wide receiver, they'll bring some offensive linemen in. I'm ready for it. This made me happy for Fields. But let's, talk about the Steelers. In a 12-team one quarterback league, Chase Claypool a third and a fourth for Treylon Burks. Wow, man, give me Burks. Chase Claypool 142, a third is 49. The fourth is 18 for a total of 208. Treylon Burks is 404. I mean, this is some straight up, Treylon Burks has been hurt, he's a bust. Like, that's what this is. And that's wrong. That's just wrong. That's all that is. So I am very easily on the correct side here, which is Treylon Burks.
Yeah. Cash out on Chase Claypool, I think, while you can, because there are definitely, I'm not in the camp that I don't think this is actually a good thing for Chase Claypool.
Oh, I don't think it. I'm not. Well, if this were last year, even with the ghost of Ben Roethlisberger throwing the ball, I think it would have not been good. But throwing hasn't been going great this season for Pittsburgh. I think it's a little better.
It hasn't been either for Chicago. I mean, at least like Chase Claypool has been averaging 7.5 targets a game for the last 4 weeks.
Has he? Okay, that's more than
He has. Yes, which is actually more than George Pickens was as well. I don't know if he gets that raw target number from Chicago. Now, I've seen people argue that his target share is going to go up, which it might.
I mean, percentage, yes.
Yes, but like Darnell Mooney was seeing a higher target share than Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, Darnell Mooney was at like 30-something% because he was seeing
4 targets a game because they only threw 12 targets 12 times. Yeah. So that's ultimately my fear. I do think that Chase Claypool's this move shows that the Bears want to pass more and they want to be more effective doing it, and that they realize that was their biggest hole.
All right. No, you need to stop talking because we need to go on to this next trade.
I've been watching your face this whole time, and I totally saw that you saw this next trade. So go ahead.
Chase Claypool for Deontay Johnson and 223 seconds. What?
I saw that in the trade finder, and I immediately was like, yep, this one's going in here, because I knew this was going to be your reaction. I don't know where this comes from.
Look, Deontay Johnson's not doing great right now. That offense is not doing great right now. But not only did you swap Johnson for Claypool, which is, in my opinion, the wrong move in general, but you added 2 seconds to do it. Why?
Listen, people out there, if you think that this is going to be so much better for Chase Claypool, stop. At least it might be better for Chase Claypool, like for him, but it's not better for Chase Claypool where you need to go out and get a better wide receiver for fantasy, like who has been better for the last few years on the same team as Chase Claypool. And then you add draft picks to that side. Basically anything to that side. Is the seconds are on the wrong side of this.
That is so weird. Yes, I would absolutely consider this if this 2 seconds were on the Claypool side. Like, if it was Claypool in 2 seconds for Deontay Johnson, I'd be like, you know what? Honestly, I think I would take Claypool in the picks in that one, because Deontay Johnson's good, but he's already 26 on an offense that's going to take time to click. At least you buy 2 years back with Claypool, and you get those 2 seconds. If one of those turns out to be early, that could totally be worth it. But they're not on the Claypool side. They're on the Deontay Johnson side.
No. Yeah. So try to see, kind of like the TJ Hockenson thing. Try to see if somebody in your league really loves Chase Claypool now as the wide receiver 1 in Chicago.
So while this isn't really seen as the greatest thing in the world for Chase Claypool, I mean, I feel like we have to believe this is a good thing for George Pickens.
Yes.
Because this
I'm ready.
Shows faith. This shows they just didn't care enough about Claypool that they just don't want to pay him. So get him out of here now. And Pickens, I mean, this is a DLF trade show. Vacated targets are going to go to George Pickens, and Peter Howard's vacated targets sensor just,
It just went off. It started beeping in his office right now.
He just turned around and slapped somebody, and he doesn't know why. Somebody's talking about vacated targets. So here's a trade of George Pickens for Alvin Kamara. This is super interesting to me. And despite what the analyzer says, I think it's a fair trade. Now, I don't honestly know how much Pickens' value will go up post this trade. But right now he's at 269 and Kamara is still at 414. Like, that's sizable. That is more than a second in between. But I mean, Pickens, I don't think you were getting for a second. Maybe you get it for 2 seconds. Kind of probably have to give a late first for him.
Right.
I can't see getting more than a late first for Kamara right now. Like maybe you have a competing team and you give your first for Kamara. Like that's
right.
the most expensive I think you will see Kamara getting moved.
And then they're
for.
like, add a third and I'm in, and you're like, fine.
Yeah, like so being able to do Pickens for Kamara, I hate it dynasty wise, just because you're selling a 21-year-old wide receiver for a 27-year-old running back. But Kamara's finally scoring points again, where he just wasn't doing that at the beginning of the year. So I get if a losing team has Kamara dangling that young wide receiver out there and just be like, give me some points, give me some points. So I get it. Part of me wants to see what Pickens will do without Claypool there, with those extra maybe 3-ish targets he can be getting a game now.
Yeah,
like because this trade will still be there in 3 weeks. What week are we in? Yeah, so like if the average league has a deadline of around week 12, so like this trade isn't going anywhere this season. So I don't think I want to do it now, but I think it's actually fair, and I absolutely get it.
Yeah,
I don't like it because 27-year-old running back and 20-year-old wide receiver, but I'm here for it. I wouldn't shake my head at it.
This is definitely what needs to be done, like you said, if you are contending. And I think I would prefer giving up George Pickens rather than that 23 first. Like if
oh yes, I will put that out. Yes, sorry, yeah, I agree, and I totally interrupted you to say that.
Right now, like if you got a message from the guy who had Alvin Kamara, who's rebuilding, and he's like, I want to give you Kamara, and it's your choice of a 23 first or George Pickens. I would rather just send George Pickens, because I feel like that first is going to gain value, whereas Pickens,
you'll probably gain a little bit of value.
Right. But the fear is that Pickens takes off and becomes like a star, that he's kind of shown that he can be on multiple catches this season already. Like if he starts getting the consistent volume because Chase Claypool's not there, then this might be the move that ultimately kind of unlocks George Pickens a little bit in terms of a consistency standpoint. The offense needs to get better, but maybe the offense gets better by involving George Pickens more. It might be one of those kind of things. I don't really know.
You're stretching it. You're stretching it a little too much for me on that one.
But I totally get it. Like you said, on both sides, where rebuilding, contending, this is one of those moves that, especially like you said, in this time, now that we're in November, we're going to see this stuff a lot between now and Thanksgiving.
So Alvin Kamara's points this season: 7.6, missed a game; 7.3, missed a game; 23.4, 18.4, 17.5, 42.8.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that after a very shaky start, he's Alvin Kamara again. So again, yes, go trade for Kamara. Try not to send a first, but if you have to trade a young wide receiver, yes, this is I don't like it, but this is better than sending a first, and I like it. Oh, but that's the end of the sheet. So I guess that's the end of the DLF trade show. Russ Fisher at Dynasty House, Addison Hayes at AmazeHayes_, and we will catch you next time.